She said it like she was asking me to grab milk on the way home from work. We were standing in our kitchen, the one with the granite countertops she'd insisted we couldn't live without, and Sarah was scrolling through her phone with that little half smile she got when someone was feeding her attention, the kind of smile I used to think was reserved for me. "I need you to pretend we broke up," she said, not even looking up from her screen. "My ex is coming to town, and I want to see if there's still something there." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. The coffee maker was gurgling, the morning news was droning in the background, and maybe my brain had scrambled the words somehow. But then she looked up at me with those green eyes that had convinced me to marry her 5 years ago, and I knew I'd heard every word perfectly. "What did you just say?" I asked, setting my mug down harder than necessary. Sarah rolled her eyes like I was being deliberately dense. "It's not that complicated, Jake. Tommy's in town for a conference, and we're going to catch up. I just need some space to figure out what I'm feeling without you hovering around, making it weird." Tommy. I remembered Tommy from the wedding photos she kept in a box under our bed, the ones she thought I didn't know about. Tall, dark hair, the kind of jaw that belonged on movie posters. Her college boyfriend, the one who'd supposedly broken her heart by choosing law school over her. "You want me to pretend we're broken up so you can what? Date your ex?" The words tasted bitter coming out of my mouth. "It's not dating," she said, finally putting the phone down. "It's just clarity. Look, if you're really confident in our relationship, this shouldn't threaten you. It's only temporary." Temporary. Like our 5-year marriage was a subscription service she could pause whenever something more interesting came along. I stared at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in months. The woman I'd worked double shifts to help through architecture school. The woman I'd supported when she wanted to start her own firm. The woman who now made twice what I did and reminded me of it every time we argued about money. "You understand what you're asking me to do, right?" I said slowly. She sighed, the kind of exaggerated exhale she used when explaining things to difficult clients. "I'm asking you to trust me enough to let me have this experience. Think of it as an experiment. If there's nothing there with Tommy, then I'll know for sure that what we have is real." An experiment. Our marriage was a hypothesis she needed to test. "And if there is something there, then we'll deal with that when it happens." She picked up her phone again, already dismissing me. "But Jake, honestly, if you make this into some big dramatic thing, it's just going to prove that you don't trust me." That's when it hit me. The real truth behind her casual request. She wasn't asking for permission to see if she still had feelings for Tommy. She was asking for permission to disrespect me, to humiliate me, to reduce me to a placeholder while she auditioned my replacement, and she wanted me to smile and nod and make it easy for her. I looked around our kitchen, our home that I'd helped build, filled with furniture we'd chosen together, photos of trips we'd taken, a life we'd constructed brick by brick, and I realized that somewhere along the way, I'd become a tenant in my own marriage. "Okay," I said. Sarah blinked, clearly surprised. She'd been gearing up for a fight, ready with more arguments about trust and confidence in modern relationships. "Really?" "Really." I nodded, my voice steady. "You want to run your experiment? Go ahead." The smile that spread across her face made my stomach turn. Relief and excitement and something that looked almost like contempt. "Thank you, Jake. I knew you'd understand. This is why I love you." I didn't say anything to that. Instead, I walked to our bedroom that would be just her bedroom in about 10 minutes, and pulled out the duffel bag I used for weekend fishing trips. I packed methodically. Clothes for a week, my toiletries, my laptop, the watch my dad had given me when I graduated college. Sarah followed me, her excitement shifting to confusion. "What are you doing?" "Packing." I folded my favorite sweater, the blue one she'd bought me for Christmas 2 years ago. "You said you needed me to pretend we broke up. I'm making it easy for you." "Jake, I didn't mean you had to actually leave. I just meant..." "What? That I should hide in the basement while you bring him here? Sneak out the back door when he comes over?" I zipped the bag shut and turned to face her. "No, Sarah. If we're broken up, even pretend broken up, then I don't live here anymore." She laughed, but it sounded nervous now. "You're being ridiculous. It's just for a few days?" I walked past her to the kitchen and pulled my keys from the hook by the door. I slid my house key off the ring and set it on the granite counter she'd wanted so badly. The metal made a small clicking sound that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "Jake." Her voice was smaller now, uncertain. "We'll talk when Tommy leaves, okay? This doesn't change anything between us." I looked at her one more time, this woman I'd loved enough to promise forever to. She was beautiful, successful, everything I'd thought I wanted. And she was willing to throw away 5 years of marriage for a few days of nostalgia with a man who'd already chosen something else over her once. Have fun with your experiment, I said, and walked out. I heard her calling my name as I loaded my bag into my truck, but I didn't turn around. I drove to the Motel 6 on Route 9, the one with the flickering neon sign and the desk clerk who didn't ask questions. I paid for a week in cash and sat on the thin mattress in room 127, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. My phone started buzzing around noon, text messages from Sarah, each one a little more frantic than the last. Where are you? Jake, call me back. This is childish. I'm worried about you. I turned the phone off and went for a walk. 3 days. That's how long it took for Sarah to remember I existed. I'd spent those days in a strange kind of limbo, going to work at the construction site where I managed electrical installations, coming back to the motel, eating takeout Chinese food, and watching cable TV shows I'd never bothered with when I had a home. The guys at work asked where Sarah was when she didn't show up to our usual Thursday lunch spot, and I told them she was busy with a project. Not technically a lie. My phone had been silent since Tuesday. I'd turned it back on Wednesday morning, half expecting a flood of messages, but there was nothing. Radio silence. Sarah was busy with her experiment, and apparently it was going well enough that she didn't need to check on her husband. On Friday evening, I was sitting in Murphy's Bar, a dive about 10 minutes from the motel that served decent burgers and minded its own business, when my phone finally rang. Sarah's name lit up the screen, and for a second, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Jake? Her voice was bright, cheerful, like nothing had happened. God, I've missed you. Where have you been? I've been calling. I looked at my call log. 3 missed calls, all from today. Have you? Yes, of course. Listen, Tommy's flight leaves tomorrow morning, so we can stop this silly pretending and get back to normal. Why don't you come home tonight? I'll make that pasta you like, and we can talk about everything. She sounded so casual, so confident that I'd just slide back into place like a bookmark she'd temporarily removed. The pasta I liked, as if my favorite dinner could erase 3 days of being erased from my own life. How was your experiment? I asked. There was a pause, just long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. It was illuminating. Really, it helped me realize how much I value what we have. And Tommy? What about him? Did you sleep with him? The silence stretched longer this time. In the background of the call, I could hear music playing. Something soft and intimate. Dinner music. Jake, that's not... we're adults, and we have history. But that doesn't change how I feel about you. So that was a yes. Where are you right now? I asked. I'm at home, our home, waiting for you to come back so we can fix this. But I could hear something in the background, a low voice saying something I couldn't make out. A man's voice. Is Tommy there now? We're just having dinner, as friends. Jake, you're making this into something it's not. I hung up. The bartender, a guy named Pete who looked like he'd heard every sob story in the book, slid another beer across the bar without being asked. Woman troubles? He asked. You could say that. They always think the grass is greener, Pete said, wiping down a glass, until they realize they burned their own lawn to get to it. My phone buzzed with a text. Don't be like this. Come home. Then another. You're being childish. And another. If you don't trust me, then maybe we have bigger problems. I turned the phone face down and focused on my beer. The TV above the bar was playing highlights from last night's game, and I tried to lose myself in the familiar rhythm of sports commentary. But my mind kept drifting back to Sarah's voice, to the casual way she'd admitted to sleeping with her ex while asking me to come home and pretend it never happened. You want to know the worst part? I said to Pete, who was pretending not to listen while clearly listening to every word. She actually thinks I should be grateful, like she's doing me a favor by choosing me after trying him on for size. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? I could go home, eat the pasta, pretend the last 3 days were just a bad dream. I could swallow my pride and my anger and my hurt, and we could go back to the way things were. Sarah would probably even be extra nice for a while, guilty enough to make an effort until the guilt faded and we settled back into our routine. Or I could do something else. My phone rang again. This time I answered on the first ring. We're not pretending anymore, I said before Sarah could speak. What do you mean? Her voice was smaller now, uncertain. I mean, the experiment is over. You got your answer about Tommy. Now I've got mine about you. Jake, please don't do this. Whatever you think happened, I don't think anything happened, Sarah. You told me exactly what happened. You asked me to pretend we were broken up so you could sleep with your ex-boyfriend. Mission accomplished. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. Tell me you didn't sleep with him. Silence. Tell me you didn't bring him to our house To our bed. More silence. Tell me you thought about me at all in the last 3 days. Jake? Her voice cracked, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You wanted to see if there was still something there with Tommy, I said. Well, congratulations. You also got to see what there is here with me. And the answer is nothing. Not anymore. I hung up and turned off the phone. Pete refilled my beer without being asked. Feel better? Ask me tomorrow. But even as I said it, I realized I did feel something like relief. For 3 days, I'd been in limbo, waiting for Sarah to remember I existed. Now I knew exactly where I stood, and it wasn't in the shadow of her nostalgia or her need for validation. It was right here, in a dive bar on the wrong side of town, finally seeing clearly for the first time in years. The question now was what I was going to do with that clarity. Saturday morning brought rain and a hangover that felt like divine punishment. I'd stayed at Murphy's until closing time, listening to Pete's philosophy on women and marriage while working my way through enough beer to drown a small fish. Now, lying on the scratchy motel sheets with sunlight stabbing through the thin curtains, I was paying the price. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I made coffee with the tiny machine on the dresser. It tasted like burnt water, but it was caffeine, and scrolled through the digital evidence of Sarah's panic. The messages started desperate and escalated to angry, then back to desperate again. Please call me. This is insane. You can't just throw away 5 years. I love you, not Tommy. You're being cruel. Jake, I'm scared. Please come home. The last message was from an hour ago. I'm coming to find you. I was still processing that threat when someone pounded on my door. 3 sharp knocks that made my head throb in sympathy. Jake, I know you're in there. But it wasn't Sarah's voice. It was deeper, more aggressive. Male. I looked through the peephole and saw a man I recognized from Sarah's old photos. Tommy looked exactly like I'd expected. Tall, well-dressed even in casual clothes, the kind of confident posture that came from never having to doubt your place in the world. Open the door, Jake. We need to talk. I considered ignoring him, but something in his tone suggested he wasn't going to give up easily. I opened the door but left the chain latch engaged, creating a gap just wide enough to see his face clearly. What do you want, Tommy? He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. I want to talk to you about Sarah. What about her? She's upset. Really upset. She thinks you're going to do something stupid. I almost laughed. Stupid like what? Stupid like respecting myself? Stupid like ruining her reputation, her business. His smile faded. Look, I get it. You're hurt. But Sarah made a mistake and she knows it. Don't make this harder than it has to be. For who? For her? Or for you? Tommy shifted his weight, and I caught a glimpse of something in his expression. Irritation, maybe even anger. For everyone involved, Sarah's got a good thing going with her firm. She doesn't need drama. Drama. I tasted the word. Is that what we're calling adultery now? It wasn't adultery. You were broken up. We were pretending to be broken up, at her request, so she could sleep with you. Tommy shrugged. Details. That's when I realized what this was really about. This wasn't some noble gesture to protect Sarah's feelings. This was damage control. Tommy was worried about his own reputation, his own life. Maybe he had a wife back home, or a girlfriend, or a career that couldn't handle the scandal of sleeping with a married woman. Are you married, Tommy? His jaw tightened. That's not relevant. I'll take that as a yes. I leaned against the door frame, suddenly feeling more awake despite the hangover. Does your wife know you're in town? Does she know why? You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? See, I've had 3 days to think about this whole situation, and something's been bothering me. Sarah said you were here for a conference, but I looked up legal conferences in the area this week. Nothing, so either you lied to her about why you're here, or she lied to me. Tommy's face went carefully blank. I think you're overthinking this. Maybe. Or maybe you're both more full of shit than I realized. I smiled for the first time in days. Here's what I think happened. I think you called Sarah, told her you were coming to town, and suggested a little reunion. I think she was flattered enough and bored enough with our marriage to say yes, and I think you both figured I'd be too much of a pushover to cause any real problems. Jake? But here's the thing, Tommy. You don't know me, and you sure as hell don't know what I'm capable of when someone tries to make me look like a fool. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Tommy knocked a few more times, his voice getting more agitated, but eventually I heard his footsteps retreating across the parking lot. I sat on the bed and really looked at those text messages from Sarah. read between the lines of her panic and desperation. She wasn't just worried about losing me, though I doubted that was much of a concern at this point. She was worried about what I might do, how I might react, what I might tell people. Sarah had built her architecture firm from nothing, networking her way into the good graces of the local business community, cultivating an image of professionalism and reliability. Her reputation was everything to her, more important than our marriage, apparently. And now she was realizing that reputation was in the hands of the husband she'd just publicly humiliated. My phone rang. Sarah again. This time, I answered. "Did you send Tommy to threaten me?" "What? No. Jake, where are you? He said he was going to talk to you, but I didn't. He told me not to ruin your reputation. Interesting choice of words." "I never said that. Jake, please just come home so we can talk about this like adults." "Like adults." I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to me. Adults don't ask their spouses to pretend they're single so they can fuck their ex-boyfriends. It wasn't what, Sarah? It wasn't planned, it wasn't intentional, it wasn't exactly what you asked me to make possible? Silence. "I want you to listen to me very carefully," I said. "I'm done pretending. I'm done making excuses for you, and I'm definitely done protecting your reputation from the consequences of your choices." "What does that mean?" "It means your experiment had results. You just might not like them." I hung up and turned off the phone. Then I got dressed, checked out of the motel, and drove across town to see a lawyer. The law office of Patricia Chen was in a converted Victorian house on Elm Street, the kind of place that managed to look both professional and welcoming. I'd found her name online. She specialized in family law and had good reviews from people who'd been through messy divorces. More importantly, she had an opening on Saturday afternoon. Patricia Chen was a small woman with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd heard every variation of human stupidity at least twice. She listened to my story without interruption, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "So your wife asked you to pretend to be separated so she could sleep with her ex-boyfriend," she said when I finished, "and now she wants to reconcile." That's the short version. And you don't want to reconcile. "I want a divorce, fast and clean." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "It's not going to be that simple. You've been married 5 years, you have joint assets, and Massachusetts doesn't have true no-fault divorce if one party contests it." "What does that mean?" "It means if Sarah doesn't want a divorce, she can make it difficult, expensive, time-consuming." She tapped her pen against the legal pad. "However, you do have some advantages. Her infidelity gives you grounds for a fault-based divorce, which could affect the division of assets." "How so?" "If we can prove she committed adultery, the court might award you a larger share of the marital property. The house, her business assets, retirement accounts, all of it could be on the table." I thought about the house we'd bought together, the one I'd worked overtime to help pay for, the business Sarah had built with my emotional and financial support during the lean early years, the life we'd constructed that she'd been willing to gamble away for a weekend with Tommy. What do I need to prove adultery? Evidence, photos, messages, testimony from witnesses. Patricia studied my face. "Do you have any of that?" She admitted it to me over the phone, and her ex-boyfriend showed up at my motel this morning, basically confirming it. That's a start, but it's all hearsay. We need something more concrete. I left Patricia's office with a retainer agreement and a list of things to document. She'd advised me to go back to the house, to try to reconcile the appearance of trying to work things out while I gathered evidence and prepared for the legal battle ahead. "Don't let on that you've seen a lawyer," she warned, "and don't do anything that could be construed as harassment or stalking. We want to be the reasonable party here." The reasonable party, I almost laughed. There was nothing reasonable about any of this. I drove back to the house as the sun was setting, painting the sky the color of old bruises. Sarah's car was in the driveway, and every light in the house was on. She must have been watching for me, because the front door opened before I'd even turned off the engine. "Jake!" She ran down the front steps, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with, vulnerable, hopeful, beautiful in the golden light. "Thank God you're home." She threw her arms around me, and I let her, feeling the familiar weight of her against my chest. She smelled like the expensive perfume I'd bought her for our anniversary, and underneath that, something else. Something that might have been guilt. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I thought you might not come back." I almost didn't. She pulled back to look at my face, her hands still on my shoulders. "But you did. That has to mean something." I looked at the house behind her, at the life we'd built together. "It means we need to talk." Inside, Sarah had prepared what looked like a peace offering. Candles on the dining room table, takeout from my favorite Italian place, a bottle of wine that probably cost more than I made in a day. She'd changed into the blue dress I'd always liked, and her hair was down the way she knew I preferred it. "I know you're angry," she said as we sat down. "I know I handled this badly. But Jake, I need you to understand. It wasn't about not loving you. It was about being sure." "Sure of what?" "Sure that I chose the right person. Sure that I wasn't settling." She reached across the table for my hand. "And now I am sure. Being with Tommy again made me realize what I have with you." "What do you have with me, Sarah?" "Everything. Love, partnership, a future." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Tommy was just nostalgia, a fantasy. But you're real. We're real." I looked at her across the table, this woman who'd shared my bed for 5 years, who knew how I liked my coffee and which side of the bed I preferred, and the story behind every scar on my body. She was telling me she loved me, and maybe she even believed it, but love wasn't the same thing as respect, and she'd made it clear which one mattered more to her. "Where is Tommy now?" Sarah's face tightened almost imperceptibly. "He went back to Boston. His flight was this morning." "So it's over?" "It was never really started. Jake, it was just what? Just sex? Just a few days of pretending you weren't married?" I kept my voice calm, reasonable. "Just a little experiment with my life." "Don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" Sarah stood up, pacing to the window. "You're determined to make this ugly, aren't you? You can't just accept that I made a mistake and move on." "Is that what this is? A mistake?" "Yes. A stupid, selfish mistake that I regret." "You regret getting caught?" She spun around to face me. "That's not fair, isn't it? If I'd been okay with your little arrangement, if I'd waited around like a good little husband for you to finish playing with your ex, would you regret it then?" Sarah's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw something cold in her expression, something calculating. "You're twisting everything." "I'm just asking questions. You're trying to make me the villain here." "I don't have to make you anything, Sarah. You did this all by yourself." She sat back down, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. "Fine. You want to punish me? Go ahead. Be angry for a while. But don't throw away 5 years of marriage because of 3 days. It's not about 3 days. It's about what those 3 days showed me." "Which is what?" I looked at her across the candlelit table, surrounded by the props of reconciliation she'd arranged. "That you never really saw me as an equal partner in this marriage. That you thought so little of me, you figured I'd just accept being put on hold while you auditioned my replacement. That's not. That you care more about your own wants than about our relationship. That you're willing to humiliate me as long as you get what you want." I stood up. "That you don't actually love me, Sarah. You love having me around." "How can you say that?" "Because if you loved me, really loved me, you never would have asked me to do this. You would have known it would destroy us." Sarah was crying now, but they looked like angry tears. "So, that's it? You're just going to walk away?" "I'm going to do what you asked me to do," I said. "I'm going to pretend we broke up, except I'm not going to stop pretending." I went upstairs to pack the rest of my things, leaving Sarah at the table with her candles and her wine and her tears. As I folded clothes into suitcases, I could hear her on the phone downstairs, her voice low and urgent. Calling Tommy, maybe, or her sister, or her lawyer. It didn't matter. The experiment was over, and we both had our results. I just didn't think Sarah was going to like the final grade. Word travels fast in a town like ours. By Monday morning, everyone at the construction site knew something was up. My supervisor, Mike Rodriguez, pulled me aside during the coffee break. "You okay, Jake? You look like hell." I'd been staying at a different motel, this one closer to work, and sleeping hadn't been coming easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face across that candlelit table, heard her voice asking me to pretend we were broken up like it was the most reasonable request in the world. "Sarah and I are getting divorced," I said. "No point in dancing around it." Mike whistled low. "Jesus, I'm sorry, man. What happened?" "She decided she wanted to try out her ex-boyfriend. Asked me to move out for a few days so she could see if the grass was greener." "And you said yes?" "I said yes. Then I made it permanent." Mike shook his head. "That's cold, even for her." I looked at him sharply. "What do you mean, even for her?" Mike glanced around, making sure we weren't overheard. "Come on, Jake. You had to know what people thought about your wife." "What did people think?" "That she married down. That she was slumming it with the blue-collar guy until something better came along." Mike's face was uncomfortable, like he regretted starting this conversation. "Look, I'm not saying it was true. I'm just saying that's what people said." The rest of the day passed in a blur of electrical work and growing anger. Not just at Sarah, but at myself. How long had people been talking about us like that? How long had I been the object of pity? The poor bastard who didn't know his wife was out of his league? That evening, I drove to Murphy's bar, looking for Pete's wisdom and a few hours of numbness. Instead, I found Sarah's sister, Jennifer, waiting for me in the parking lot. Jennifer looked like Sarah, but with harder edges, like someone had taken the same template and added 10 years of disappointment. She was leaning against my truck, smoking a cigarette with the practiced ease of someone who'd been doing it too long. "Jake, Jennifer, we need to talk." I unlocked the truck and threw my work bag in the back. "About what?" "About what you're doing to my sister." I almost laughed. "What I'm doing to her?" "She's a mess, Jake. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. She made one mistake. One mistake." I turned to face her fully. "Is that what she told you? That this was just one mistake?" Jennifer's cigarette paused halfway to her lips. "What else would it be?" "It was a calculated decision. She asked me to move out so she could sleep with her ex-boyfriend. She planned it, Jennifer. She thought about it and decided our marriage was worth risking for a few nights with Tommy. She said you were separated." "We were pretending to be separated, at her request. There's a difference." Jennifer took a long drag of her cigarette, studying my face. "Okay, so she handled it badly. But Jake, she chose you. She came back to you. She came back to me after she was done with him, like I was a backup plan." "That's not how she tells it." "How does she tell it?" Jennifer flicked ash onto the asphalt. "She says you're being vindictive, that you're trying to destroy her business, ruin her reputation. She says you've changed. She's right. I have changed. Into what?" I considered the question. A week ago, I would have described myself as easygoing, conflict avoidant, the kind of guy who picked his battles carefully and usually chose peace over being right. But that guy had been married to a woman who respected him. This guy was married to a woman who saw him as a convenience. "Into someone who won't be taken for granted," I said finally. Jennifer dropped her cigarette and ground it under her heel. "Sarah's scared, Jake, really scared." "Of what?" "Of losing everything. Her business, her reputation, her life." Jennifer's voice got softer, more manipulative. "She loves you. She made a mistake, but she loves you. If she loved me, she wouldn't have asked me to pretend we were divorced so she could fuck her ex-boyfriend." Jennifer flinched at the crude language. "You don't have to be cruel about it." "Cruel?" The word came out louder than I'd intended. "You want to know what's cruel? Cruel is asking your husband to make it easy for you to cheat on him. Cruel is bringing another man into the bed you share with your spouse. Cruel is calling it an experiment, like our marriage was a science project." She meant exactly what she said, Jennifer. The question is whether you're going to keep making excuses for her, or whether you're going to admit that your sister is a selfish, manipulative woman who got caught. Jennifer's face hardened. "Fine. You want to be like this? You want to destroy her? Go ahead. But don't pretend you're the victim here." "I'm not pretending anything. I'm just not pretending anymore that Sarah gives a damn about anyone but herself." Jennifer got in her car and drove away without another word, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the taste of truth bitter in my mouth. Inside Murphy's, Pete took one look at my face and started pouring without being asked. "Family meeting?" he asked. "Sister-in-law. Come to plead Sarah's case." And I think I'm finally understanding how this is going to go. I took a sip of beer, feeling the cold liquid cut through the anger in my throat. Sarah's going to play the victim. I'm going to be the vindictive ex-husband who can't forgive one little mistake. That bother you? I thought about it. A week ago, it would have bothered me a lot. I'd spent most of my adult life trying to be liked, avoiding conflict, being the reasonable one. But reasonable men got walked on. Reasonable men got asked to step aside while their wives auditioned replacements. "No," I said, realizing I meant it. "I don't think it does." Pete nodded approvingly. "Good, because if you're going to fight, you might as well fight to win." "What does winning look like?" "That depends. What do you want?" I considered the question. A week ago, I would have said I wanted my marriage back, wanted Sarah to realize what she'd thrown away, wanted to go back to the way things were. But the way things were had led us here, to a place where my wife thought so little of me that she'd asked me to facilitate my own humiliation. "I want her to understand that actions have consequences," I said finally. "I want her to know what it feels like to lose something important. And then what? And then I want to move on with my life." Pete raised his glass in a mock toast. "To moving on. To moving on." But even as I said it, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Sarah wasn't going to let me walk away quietly, especially if she thought I might damage her reputation on the way out. And I was starting to realize maybe I didn't want it to be simple. Maybe I wanted her to fight for what she was losing, the same way I'd fought for our marriage while she was busy experimenting with Tommy. Maybe I wanted her to hurt the way I'd hurt, sitting alone in that motel room while she played house with her ex. Pete was right. If I was going to fight, I should fight to win. The question was, what would winning actually cost me? The next morning, I met with my attorney, Laura. She spread documents across her desk like a battlefield map. Bank statements showing transfers to Tommy's account. Hotel receipts from weekends I thought Sarah was at a conference. Texts between Sarah and her friends mocking my predictable nature. Laura had been building the case quietly for weeks. She's claiming emotional distress and wants the house, Laura said. But we have proof of her spending marital funds on the affair. We can push for a fault-based divorce in this state. Adultery still matters here. I nodded. What about the kids? Joint custody is default, but if we show her pattern of neglect, missed school events, late nights out while you handled everything, she'll get supervised visits at best. We can request she pay child support based on her income. Sarah made more than I did. The thought of her writing checks to me felt like poetic justice. I hesitated. I don't want to drag the kids through a war. You won't have to, Laura said. She'll fold when she sees the evidence. People like Sarah care about image more than anything. I left the office with a plan. That afternoon, I filed the papers. No warning, no final conversation. Just the quiet click of the courthouse door behind me. Sarah's reaction came that evening. My phone lit up with missed calls, then a single text. How could you do this without talking to me? I didn't reply. The next day, she showed up at the house after work. The girls were at soccer practice. It was just us. She looked smaller somehow, mascara smudged from crying. You didn't even give me a chance to explain, she said. You had months to explain. You chose Tommy instead. She paced the living room. I was confused. I thought we were drifting. Tommy made me feel seen. And I didn't? You were always working, always tired. I felt invisible. I laughed softly. I was working to pay the mortgage on the house you wanted, to fund the vacations you posted about, to give the girls the life you said you wanted for them. She stopped pacing. I made mistakes, but filing like this? It's cruel. No, I said. Cruel is asking me to pretend everything was fine while you built a new life. Cruel is letting Tommy sleep in our bed. She flinched. Don't lie anymore. I have the hotel security footage. Her face drained of color. You were spying? I was protecting myself. You forced my hand. She sank onto the couch. What do you want from me? I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to understand that you don't get to rewrite the story and walk away clean. She looked up, eyes glistening. I still love you. I think I can fix this. I shook my head. Love doesn't look like betrayal, and even if you could fix it, I don't want to be fixed with anymore. She left quietly. No more threats, no more tears. Just the sound of her car pulling away. The divorce dragged on for months. She fought at first. Counterfiled, demanded alimony, tried to paint me as the controlling one. But the evidence was overwhelming. In mediation, she agreed to joint legal custody with me as primary residential parent. She got every other weekend, supervised until she completed counseling. She kept her car and half the savings. I kept the house. When the papers were signed, I felt something shift. Not triumph, exactly. Relief. The weight I'd carried for years, the fear of losing everything, lifted. The girls adjusted better than I expected. They asked about Mommy, but the questions grew less frequent. We built new routines, movie nights, weekend hikes, dinners where we laughed without tension. I started dating again, slowly. Met a woman named Rachel at a school fundraiser. She was a single mom, kind, funny, and refreshingly honest. No games, no drama. 6 months after the final decree, Sarah called. It was late, her voice small. I'm sorry, she said. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am. I believed her. The words sounded real this time. I appreciate that, I said. Take care of yourself. I hung up and looked around the living room. The same room where we'd once argued, laughed, built a life. It felt different now. Mine. Pete was right. Winning wasn't about destruction. It was about choosing myself, the girls, and a future without lies. And that was enough. The divorce papers were served on a Tuesday. I wasn't there to see Sarah's reaction, but Jennifer called me that evening, and I could hear the rage in her voice before she even spoke. "You bastard," she said without preamble. "You served her at work, in front of her clients." I was in my new apartment, a one-bedroom place above a deli that smelled like pastrami and regret, eating Chinese takeout and watching the news. I didn't choose the timing. That's up to the process server. Bullshit! You could have had them delivered to the house. The house I don't live in anymore? The house she kicked me out of so she could play with her ex-boyfriend? She didn't kick you out. You left. At her request. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, and I could hear voices in the background. Sarah, probably, coaching her sister on what to say. "She wants to talk to you," Jennifer said finally. "Tell her to talk to my lawyer." "Jake, come on, don't be like this." "Like what? Like someone who won't let himself be humiliated twice? Like someone who's trying to destroy the woman he supposedly loved?" I set down my chopsticks and really considered that accusation. Was that what I was doing? Trying to destroy Sarah? Or was I just refusing to make it easy for her to destroy me? "Put her on the phone," I said. There was some shuffling, and then Sarah's voice, smaller and more fragile than I'd heard it in years. "Jake? Hello, Sarah. Please don't do this. Please. We can work this out without lawyers, without making it public. You made it public when you asked me to move out. You made it public when you brought Tommy to our house. You made it public when you decided our marriage was something you could pause and resume at will. I made a mistake. Stop saying that." The words came out sharper than I'd intended. "Stop calling it a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. This was a choice. You chose Tommy over me, and now you're living with that choice. I chose you. I came back to you. You came back to me when you were done with him. There's a difference." Sarah was crying now, and once upon a time, that sound would have broken my heart. Now it just made me tired. "What do you want?" she asked. "What will it take for you to stop this?" "I want a divorce." "I mean, really, what do you want? Money? The house? My business?" And there it was. The real Sarah, the one who thought everything could be bought or negotiated or managed. The one who couldn't understand that some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed with the right offer. "I want you to understand that you can't treat people like disposable objects and expect them to thank you for it," I said. You asked me to pretend we were divorced so you could sleep with another man. You brought him to our bed, to our home, to our life, and then you called me childish for not wanting to come back and pretend it never happened. Jake, you want to know what I want, Sarah? I want you to feel what I felt, sitting in that motel room while you played house with Tommy. I want you to know what it's like to have someone you love treat you like you don't matter. I hung up before she could respond. My phone rang again immediately, but I turned it off and finished my Chinese food in silence. Outside my window, the town was settling into its evening rhythm. People coming home from work, families gathering for dinner, couples walking their dogs under the streetlights. Normal people living normal lives, not dealing with the wreckage of experimental marriages and disposable love. The next morning, Patricia Chen called with an update. "Sarah's hired David Morrison," she said. "He's expensive and aggressive. This is going to get ugly." I knew Morrison by reputation. He was the lawyer rich people hired when they wanted to win at any cost. The fact that Sarah had gone straight to him told me everything I needed to know about how she viewed this divorce. What does that mean for us? It means she's going to fight. She'll probably claim mental cruelty, try to paint you as vindictive and unstable. She might even try to get a restraining order. Based on what? Based on whatever story she thinks will work. Jake, I need you to be very careful about your behavior from here on out. Don't contact her directly, don't go to the house, don't do anything that could be construed as harassment. I haven't done anything wrong. I know. But Morrison specializes in making innocent behavior look sinister. He'll take the fact that you moved out immediately and spin it as abandonment. He'll take your refusal to reconcile and call it cruelty. I thought about that conversation all day while I worked, running electrical wire through the walls of a new office building. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was literally building something while my marriage was being systematically demolished by lawyers and accusations. That evening, I stopped by Murphy's for a beer and found an unexpected ally waiting for me. Tommy was sitting at the bar, looking considerably less confident than he had at the motel. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of a man who hadn't been sleeping well. "Jake," he said as I sat down 2 stools away. "Tommy." Pete looked back and forth between us, clearly sensing the potential for drama. "You boys going to behave yourselves in my establishment?" "We're just going to talk," Tommy said. I ordered a beer and waited. "Sarah's lawyer called me," Tommy said after a long moment. "Wants me to testify on her behalf." "About what?" "About our relationship. He wants me to say it was just emotional, not physical." I looked at him in the mirror behind the bar. And what did you tell him? I told him I'd think about it. But you're here talking to me instead. Tommy took a sip of his drink, something expensive and amber. I'm here because I have a problem. Which is? My wife found out. I felt something that might have been satisfaction settle in my chest. How? Sarah called the house, left a message saying she missed me and couldn't wait to see me again. Tommy's laugh was bitter. My wife heard it. Oops. She's filing for divorce. She's taking the kids, the house, everything. He turned to look at me directly. 20 years of marriage, gone. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and realized I actually meant it. Not for Tommy, but for his wife and kids, who were paying the price for his midlife crisis. Are you? Because you could stop this. How? Drop the divorce. Work it out with Sarah. My wife might be willing to reconcile if she thinks it was just a one-time thing, a moment of weakness. I studied his face in the mirror. But it wasn't a one-time thing, was it? Tommy's silence was answer enough. How long have you and Sarah been talking? A few months. And this wasn't the first time you've seen each other. No. The pieces clicked into place. Sarah's late nights at the office, her sudden interest in conferences and networking events, the new clothes, the expensive perfume, the distance that had been growing between us for months. How many times? Jake, how many times did my wife cheat on me? Tommy stared into his drink. I don't know. 6, maybe 7 times over the past few months. The number hit me like a physical blow. Not one mistake, not one moment of weakness, but months of lies. Months of coming home to a woman who was living a double life, who was kissing me goodnight after spending afternoons with another man. The experiment, I said, more to myself than to Tommy. That wasn't about seeing if there was still something there. That was about making it official. She said you were growing apart, that you didn't appreciate her. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I finished my beer and stood up. Good luck with your divorce, Tommy. Jake, wait. We can help each other here. If you drop your divorce, I'll tell Sarah's lawyer the truth about our relationship. It'll hurt her case, but it might save both our marriages. I looked at this man who had been sleeping with my wife for months, who had helped her lie to me, who had been part of turning my marriage into a joke. And I realized that I didn't want to save my marriage anymore. I wanted to be free of it. No, I said. No? No, I won't drop the divorce. No, I won't help you save your marriage. And no, I won't make this easy for either of you. I walked out of Murphy's and into the cool night air, feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear Tommy calling my name, but I didn't turn around. The war had begun, and I was finally ready to fight.